Welcome to the Growing Green Ventures podcast, where we get to listen to stories from entrepreneurs from across different sectors and industries, learning the real steps it takes to create a business with lasting impact. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jordana Guimaraes, the founder of Fashinnovation, an organization connecting voices within the fashion industry on innovation, sustainability, and diversity. Leveraging digital technology and in-person events, Fashinnovation creates spaces where fashion communities gather to learn and share new ideas that move the industry forward. Now, I've had the good fortune to meet Jordana early on in my career within the fashion industry, where I went to many of her events and I got to learn firsthand from her guest speakers and have the networking experiences and the like with individuals within the industry and beyond on all things digital transformation to sustainable manufacturing and circular business models within the fashion industry specifically. The fashion industry is one of the leading greenhouse gas emitting industries in the world, one of the largest producers of wastewater, muddled with labor rights issues, has one of the most scattered supply chains, and the like. Now, we all need clothes to live, and the majority of us use clothes well beyond just the need for survival, right? But to thrive and use as a status symbols, use for self-expression, and aid us in our own performances. There's a lot of attention on the fashion industry right now to see how new business models can adapt and take hold. And Fashinnovation is one of those organizations pushing for that better industry. Today, we speak about Jordana's journey from Brazil to skipping college and going right into entrepreneurship, her many ups and downs along the way, starting her own previous businesses, how she landed on merging her experience in PR and events with addressing the issues within the fashion industry. Now, what does good mean for her, and what she sees as exciting models for sustainable fashion moving forward are all parts of the conversation and more. I had a great time speaking with her. I hope you enjoy listening to this as well. Thank you so much and enjoy. Jordana, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here at Growing Green Ventures podcast. I'm really excited to speak with you today about your story, about Fashinnovation, and of course your whole background. It's really interesting. You've done a lot of different things across the fashion space and PR and all that stuff. But before we jump into it, I'd love for you to give our audience a little bit of a backstory about who you are, your background, your educational background, and your business as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Jordana, and let's see, where do I start? So I come from parents that were born in Egypt. I was first generation, born and raised in Brazil. And then I came to the US when I was 12 years old without a word of English. So growing up,
Wow.
it was Arabic, French, Portuguese in the house. And then I came here when I was 12 because in Brazil it was very dangerous, especially when I was growing up this was like early 90s. There was a lot of kidnappings and things like that. And my parents were both entrepreneurs. So both of them owned many businesses in Brazil. And when all of that started happening, they started getting threats that they were going to kidnap me and my sisters. I have three sisters. I'm the oldest of four.
Wow.
So that's why we moved to the US. So it was really because of that. I was lucky to be born with dual citizenship. So I was born Brazilian and American passport. So when we came, we didn't have that issue, which was nice. It made it easier. But that's
Indeed.
kind of like my upbringing and my background. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
mixed. Um, I so when I came when I was 12, I went to middle school and high school in Boca, in Florida. And then I moved to New York when I was 18. And I actually didn't do the college thing. I'm kind of like the black sheep, the rebel in my family. I decided that
Okay.
I wanted to just like work with people. I was like, I already know what I want to do. I don't need college. And so I just literally started working. I had so many different jobs. I, Everything from I was a real estate agent. I was a teller at a bank. I was a manager at Kohan Retail. I mean, anything, everything that you can imagine I
Yeah.
did until the age of 22 or 23. So, like, every time I would get a compliment from a manager saying, like, wow, people really like you, I was like, okay, well, I want a next thing. I want to do something else. But when I got to 22, 23, I was like kind of bored of jumping around.
Sure.
And that's when I went to Barnes and Noble, got a career book that was like an encyclopedia, started browsing through, looking for my characteristics. And then I came across public relations. And when I saw like good with people, sales, writing, everything that I liked, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. So I bought PR for Dummies, read the whole book. I was like, I got this. This is a true story. And then
I love it. I love it. I love
and
it.
then after reading PR for Dummies, I went on Craigslist. At the time was reputable, and I found a job that I had no qualifications for. But that's the job I chose to go for, which was to be the PR director for Nina Ricci, Porsche Design, Lanva, a lot of the bigger brands. And then when I applied for the job, I was honest in saying, I just read PR for Dummies. I don't have college. I don't have experience, but I think I can do this job. The president of the company wrote me back saying, you have a lot of balls to apply for this. Never got an email like this in my life. I want to meet you. So I went to the meeting. We spoke. He liked the passion that he saw in me and he gave me the job, but he didn't pay me. He said, I'm going to let you do it for 3 months for free. I don't pay you, but show me what you can do. And if you can do the job, I'll start paying you. So I said, okay,
Wow.
took the job. And yeah, it was crazy. And then in those 3 months, it was kind of funny because he would say, write a press release, and I would Google press release and do step by step. But after the 3 months, I got them in like a ton of publications. And then the
Nice.
day he went to offer me a job, I quit and I started my own PR company. And then the rest goes from there. Yeah. So
Wow. Wow, Jordana, you do got some cojones. That's impressive. That's crazy. Wow, you really you always just going for the next one. I love that. So you started out this career in PR in this
yeah,
very non-traditional manner,
yeah.
and you obviously had a knack for it, and you were succeeding heavily in the first 3 months, and then you decided to start your own PR firm. Was being a founder or starting your own business something that you always wanted to do? And if not, and also tangentially, like, what was your dream job as a kid? What did little Jordana want to do when she was 12 years old, 16 years old?
So little Jordan, it's funny. So I actually always wanted to be a journalist, funny enough. That was always
Okay.
what I wanted to do. And I never, I mean, PR kind of has a little bit of that, but I don't know where it like shifted, but that's always what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And then I think growing up, I saw my parents like travel the world and they always had dinner parties and all like super interesting people at my house all the time and just seeing and then like, going with them on cruise ships and seeing them like switch languages on people to make a sale. Like I always liked watching that and I was like, I want
Yeah.
to do that. So I think that that definitely inspired me to want to have
Mm.
something of my own.
Was there a specific sector that you wanted to PR for or PR in? Was it clear that fashion and design was something that you wanted to be involved in, or was it just PR for PR in PR sake in general?
It's kind of funny because I didn't really know what I was getting into with PR. I thought it looked good. And funny enough, now with Fashinnovation, which we'll get to even,
Yeah.
like, I've never really been a fashion person. Like, I don't really feel I like it. I'm not like, oh my God, I love fashion, but I love people. And so
Sure.
I think it was like the industry that attracted me because there's so many interesting people in the fields. But it
Hmm.
wasn't because of fashion that I got into fashion, really.
Mm.
And also, I think because it was the only Craigslist job that popped out, like with what I thought I wanted to do. So I was like,
Sure.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
But then when I started my own PR company, which was crazy because 20, I was 23 or 24. Like
Uh-huh.
no one knew me from a hole in the wall aside from the 3 months that I had at that job. So I literally had to like sell all my jewelry. My father was a jeweler to buy like cheese and bread. And I lived in a tiny, tiny studio on like in the projects they call it, but it's not that bad in the Upper West Side. And so,
I love a
um,
good New York real estate story. Yeah.
yeah. So, so I feel like it was a struggle because I remember that day too. My mom was like, "You're on your own. Like I give up. You're on your own. Figure it out." So like that was like really hard.
Yeah.
But I started doing PR for everything. I did PR for like Interscope Records for a new like Will I Am artist in LA. I would do like pop ups at rooftops and just
So
like create
yeah.
social angles. Like I would just anything and everything that needed to be like pushed out, I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh wow. Okay. That's
yeah,
interesting. That's interesting. And this is Jordana PR, the name of the firm,
yeah.
correct?
It was Jordana
Okay.
PR. Yeah,
What was this? Would you say that that was your first entrepreneurial venture that you were a part of or directly
yeah,
started?
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? what were some of the key lessons that you learned
So
from
many.
starting this?
So,
Lessons learned that really, like, you have to work hard and be proactive and be determined. That's a generic sort of, thought. But then when you're in the trenches of starting a business, you come across something that maybe like literally sparks a new, connection of synapses in your brain. Like, what
yeah.
are some of the biggest takeaways from that?
So, okay. So to get a little bit personal, but I think
Hmm.
it will say a lot. So
Yeah.
I was married before. So I was
Mm.
actually had Jordana PR with my ex-husband. And I think one of the biggest things, and I think I got better at it with my second husband with the business I have now, but I think like figuring out like really communication is so important, whether it's like
Hmm.
with a partner, a team, all those things, like it's super important the way you communicate. And you have to learn how to separate the business from the personal if you're working with a spouse or a sister or whatever, family.
Hmm.
So that's number one. And number two, which is super important, I think, because I was young also, but I didn't realize like for me, I think I was more of a solopreneur, even though I had my ex-husband with me as a partner. But I I didn't realize because I never went to school for business, neither did
Hmm.
he, that like to grow a business, like it was kind of like money would come in. Like we didn't know how to separate like business from personal in any regard. So like it never
Uh,
grew into a business. It was always like a like project, travel, project, like it was like that. So I think like processes and like team and like there's so many things that have to be put in place. And I think when you
mhm.
start a business and you get money, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm making so much money. But really, when you put it back into the business, you really not,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So there,
Yeah.
that's what I think was a big lesson for me. I was in my early 20s. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. That's fair enough. So you started this, you were in this PR firm. You started this PR firm, excuse me. You started this PR firm. You're hustling for new deals. You're doing some interesting stuff, it sounds like.
yeah,
What was the peak, and then what was the demise? Because it's not, you don't operate this
yeah,
company anymore, correct?
no, no.
Yeah. Tell
The
me about the
peak,
arch that happened.
yeah. So the peak, I think was So I think the peak was definitely when we were getting like the bigger deals. I'd say like 2, 3 years in, it started to gain traction, and we were working with like a lot of celebrities and a lot of like big accounts and all of these things, which was really good. Like we were making really good money. We were traveling around the world. Really, we were like buying houses, flipping properties. Like it was really good. But then I think what happened is because PR is a hard business. I mean, it was back then. Maybe it changed a little bit now. But like, because it's a lot of like going out, socializing, drinking, partying. So I think like it's like I think, carried away with that part of it. And I
Mm,
think that I started to like lose track of like what I was at these events to do. And then I started to kind of lose myself a little bit in that scene. Um,
mm,
yeah, so I think and then that also like led to a lot of things in the personal side and different
sure,
things
sure,
that
sure.
happened. So I
Gotcha.
think, yeah, I think it was, yeah, there's some sides to it that you have to be a very disciplined person, I think, to be in PR, especially in fashion and entertainment.
Mm, completely. No, rubbing
Yeah,
shoulders with people in that space. It's a very particular business, important business, nevertheless, but tricky.
yeah.
So this PR business ends. What was happening between that and Fashion Innovation and the idea of Fashion Innovation coming in? What
So,
happens during that period of time?
yeah, so between that and Fashinnovation, so okay, let's see. So I had like so I started the PR business. I was 22, 23.
Yeah.
And then I got divorced when I was 29. Between 29 and 35, which is when I met Marcelo, we started the business when I was 36. So yeah, no, 37. So between 29 and 37, I had a period that I was opening businesses for friends. So it was crazy actually. So
Okay.
I I started after the first relationship. We're getting personal here, but it's okay because it gives like
That's what this is
trajectory.
about.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. Entrepreneurship is a personal endeavor
I
at the end of the day. So
because I always liked opening businesses. I actually, my second relationship after my first divorce was just a boyfriend, but we were together for a while, and he had a lot of ideas. So he opened a restaurant, and I helped him open that restaurant in New York City, and I made it really successful. But it was my only client, and I was only working for his restaurant. Then, after a few years, he said, I want to open a hair salon because he was really good at doing hair. So we had a loft in the West Village. So I was like, I'll help you open a salon. So I literally made it super successful, got sponsors, had clients booked back to back, like ran the salon for him. Then, funny enough, a year later, he said, I want to be an artist. It was a crazy, like, few years. So we moved to Florida and we opened an art gallery in Meisner Park, which was like this huge art gallery. I did all the
yeah,
bookings, I did all the parties for him, brought all the media, did all the stuff. And then I was tired of opening businesses and he kept changing. And then that's when I
yeah,
realized I was like, I don't know, I felt like I was just kind of following what he wanted to do, even though everything he
yeah.
wanted to do, I did it successfully. And then we had to shut it down because he had a new idea. But then that's when I was like, I need a break. So at 35, I decided to go to Brazil to visit my father who was sick with cancer.
Hmm.
And we
Sorry.
didn't really have a close relationship. So I wanted to make amends. God
Hmm.
forbid something happened to him, which it did.
Of
I'm
course,
glad that
of
I
course.
did. Yeah, we rekindled our relationship. And then in that trip is when I met Marcelo at a champagne bar. And then 4 bottles of champagne in, things happened. And then we pretty much got together pretty quickly.
Amazing.
And then a few months later, got pregnant with the first child, decided we got engaged, and then moved to the US, brought him back here with me, and then
Gotcha.
shortly after, second child pregnancy. And then
Gotcha.
that's when we looked at each other and said, he was like, we should, I have this idea. Because he comes from entrepreneurship, innovation, and
Yeah.
nothing fashion related. He saw my background. He's like, why don't we mix our worlds and create a summit where we bring CEOs and founders in the entrepreneurship world and the fashion world on stage during New York Fashion Week. Do you think this would work? And I said, let's try it. Of course, I said that. So I was like, let's do it.
You see, you
Um,
love just diving in from the deep end. That seems to be your knack. Yeah.
Can you tell?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so, and it's crazy because I look at all my journey and it sounds like crazy, like how kind of I'm very spontaneous with things. But I also feel like, honestly, I know so much today because of the experiences that I had. And it
Hmm.
allowed me, Fashinnovation is a success that it is because of my failures, because of my all the background that I had in different things that I've done.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, then we just decided to start it and started cold emailing everyone in the world because we didn't really have the context that we needed for what we wanted to build.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay.
that's the beginning of that.
Amazing. Amazing. So the idea really came from this idea of you and your partner wanting to merge worlds between business innovation and fashion and PR all together. And the idea was to create a summit, sort of an exchange of information and
Yeah,
ideas during Fashion Week. What
exactly.
was the first event that you put up like? How did that go about?
The first event. So the first event,
Yeah.
I had my newborn baby literally like feeding as we're like cold emailing people. So it was like brand
Yeah.
new baby, and we decided to start this first event or put it together. Literally July of 2018, we came up with the idea. We wrote down Fashinnovation on a piece of paper. We're like, this looks good. And the first event that we did was September 2018. So we're talking July, August, September, 3 months. No one
Uh-huh.
knew us. We had no website. We had nothing. We literally created, we still have it. It's funny to look back 5 years later. We created a PDF with like wish names, and every name was like speakers, and there was a list. And next to every name was TBD, 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 because we like, and that's what we would send to people when we would invite them. This is who we're inviting, like hoping that the names.
Oh, that's so funny.
So literally, like it was crazy.
Yo.
So we,
I love that. I
So
love that.
we sent it out, and crazy enough, the first event we had over 40 speakers, which included FIT, IBM, Google, NASA, Oscar Metzebat, the founder of Osklin. We even had the
Hmm.
ambassador of the Arab Fashion Council that was in town from Saudi Arabia speak, like United Nations. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah,
Founders of Ministry of Supply, Universal Standard.
sure.
This is all cold email. And we had for almost 500 guests, and that was our first event. And it was when we realized that we were onto something was at the end, at the after party. We
Uh-huh.
had like Paul Dillinger at Levi's and like Ivan from Google, all these guys like stayed with us at the after party for a while, like
Yeah.
really loved it. They were all like, this was amazing. I've never been to an event where I was talking to Google and NASA and IBM and da da da. So then we're like, okay, we're onto something. So we decided to keep going.
I love that. I love that. When the guests stay at the party after for a while, that sort of says
Yeah,
something right there.
that's exactly right.
They're not willing just to like bounce right after they speak. Um, and so this is really when so you have this successful event. I mean, 500 people is no small feat
Yeah.
by any means. This is really the moment when you decided to sort of make that jump and you were willing to make the sacrifices needed to commit to this full time. Is this when you decided to commit to it? Because you are doing Fashinnovation full time at this point,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, we're doing it both. Yeah, both of us. So actually, that's when we both decided to go full time, not realizing that it would take a while for sponsors to start like trusting us, because it takes a while for branding and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through like so I would say, so that event happened. We did a second event, which was February 2019. And then after that 2019 event, we put a lot more money out than we got in, a lot more. And then we found ourselves in a little bit of a hole because we were like, crap, like we're 2 months behind on rent. We
Yeah.
have two babies. Like business is still not really coming in. It's going to take a
Yeah.
while still. So so this is kind of a crazy story, but we decided we were living in New York in Long Island City. We literally left the apartment. We left all of our belongings. We literally lost everything. We took a small suitcase. We went to Brazil. Me and my husband, my two kids. We lived with his mom in a 1-bedroom apartment for 8 months with literally like not knowing what was going to happen, but not wanting to give up on Fashinnovation. We're like,
Wow.
we know there's something here. We're going to live in Brazil. Literally lost everything. We had to come back to the US and start everything from new. It was
Jeez.
crazy. So that's kind of an entrepreneurship story that
Yeah.
we don't tell often, but I think it's super important.
It's super important to hear this because sometimes this is the reality and the sacrifices needed to make your dreams happen and to make this idea come into fruition. And you're putting everything on the line.
Everything. And we have
madness.
2 babies. It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I always like family first for everything, So
yeah.
How has being a mother impacted your approach to business and entrepreneurship?
So it's made me for sure focus. Like when I do something with work, it needs to be something that is going to make the world a better place. Something that like, if they see like, oh, mommy's taking time away from being with us, but look at what she's doing. It's actually like empowering people, or it's like, cleaning the earth or whatever. Then I feel like they're going to be like, they're proud of that. Like they like, so I think it's changed. Like, I mean, I've never been really that materialistic, but I feel like now I really do everything for them. And because of that, it makes me more conscious of what I say yes to and what I choose to do and who I choose to work with. Because I think, they're 2 little girls and I want them to grow up and feel like they can take over the world, of course. So
Totally. No, it makes sense. And I think, a question that I like to ask all the guests on the show is the idea of doing good for the world and how that sort of comes into your own work. And something that I think you haven't touched on, but I'd love for you to elaborate on is, your involvement with giving back to the community. For those that don't know, Jordana is actually an author of a book called It Can Be You, where you discuss connecting. I actually don't even want to talk about it. Can you elaborate on what this book is and your involvement with the homeless and the like?
Yeah. So actually that losing everything and going to Brazil for the 8 months really spruced that up. And that's when like the book was written and really like I decided to finally do it. because I think it's very easy to point at people that are homeless and say they're lazy or they're drug addicts or whatever. People
Yeah.
have these like, stigmas around that is not necessarily true. And I think it's very, we're living in a world where like inflation, like all these things, like it happens to everybody. It's tougher now to make money than it was a year ago for any business, I feel. So I
Yes.
think like it's very easy, like if you don't have a support system, family that can like get you out of situations, whatever, like it can happen to anybody. So the name of the book is It Can Be You. And I feel like because homelessness, unfortunately, is still kind of an invisible issue to a lot of people because they want to make it invisible. And
Hmm.
fashion is something that everyone talks about and it's so much in your face. I decided to use the fashion influencer voices to give a voice to the homeless. So in the
Mm.
book, it's 47. I gathered 47 of some of the like bigger influencers in fashion. I asked them to share a story of the biggest struggle they've overcome and how they got out of it. And then I interviewed lots of homeless individuals with the street team a few years back in Manhattan. And we got each page in the book is the story of the influencer side by side with the story of the homeless.
Wow.
And it
Okay.
shows like it shows a very similar struggle, but the circumstance that one has it, the other didn't to get out of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what the
Wow,
book
that's
was.
powerful. That's powerful. Is your Fashion Innovation has been involved with a lot of initiatives around sustainability and obviously like sustainable fashion, which is a whole other topic which we'll go into in a moment. You yourself obviously have been a voice for the homeless in general, but obviously your organization really focuses on also female empowerment overall. I'd love to understand, is there a social problem, or is there an environmental issue that really is homeless the biggest problem that touches your heart, or one that you really want to address yourself? Is there an issue out there that sort of weighs heavily on your mind?
I mean, yeah. So I feel like I think it's so anyone I feel that is not treated the way that they should be treated is an issue that I have a problem with. So like homelessness, of course, is a huge one. I'd say it's definitely one of the top ones for me.
Hmm.
I also feel in terms of, let's say, like in fashion, right? When it comes to like supply chain, like workers and like fabric makers and like those individuals that don't get the attention or like the light that they should. I feel like that needs to change. I think and especially modern day slavery, all these things. Like I think it's anything like that. It just because I feel like no matter who you are and no matter who it is, everybody deserves to be treated right by each other. So
Yeah.
homelessness, I feel like because it's where it touches the whole world and there's a lot of people obviously that have that problem and a lot of people have tried to solve it and we're not anywhere close to it, and some of the most powerful people in the world sometimes try to solve it and they're not close to it. I don't know if it's a
Yeah.
problem that can be eradicated, unfortunately, but I think the
Sure.
more that people can just have, I think the biggest thing is like having compassion and empathy towards it. I definitely feel like that's the
Mm,
biggest. Yeah, I think that would be homelessness. I think would be my top. Yeah, I think.
for
Yeah,
sure. For sure. When it comes to the environment, because a lot of the times you bring in companies who are creating new sustainable materials, or enabling fashion to exist with a sustainability edge, let's say, in big topics.
yeah,
Um, do you feel like i- is there a component of the fashion supply chain that you're seeing more attention given to by startups and startups, and of course large fashion players, retailers, and brands as well? And at the same time, is there a part of the supply chain, or I like to call it the value chain, that isn't getting enough attention when it comes to either their environmental or, of course, their social impact?
yeah. So, it's so funny. I'm an optimist by nature, but
Hmm.
I feel like it's hard to be in fashion because I think sustainability, I stopped talking about it that much. I mean, I talk about it from a people perspective, but in terms of like the brand, like, because for me, if I think of sustainability, I automatically go to people, right? Like
Mm,
diversity, equality, inclusion, like people, like that's what I go to. Because, so here's the thing with sustainability that kind of like it, yeah, I don't know how it make it, how I'm trying to make sense of it in the other aspects, because here's the thing. So Europe, of course, doing a much better job than the rest of the world. The US, like I feel like brands, so I've heard verbatim at an event, one of the biggest brands in the world, the head of sustainability of that brand, I can't say who it is, saying saying like in front of an audience, I was there, literally saying, yeah, so sustainability, I don't really know if consumers are ever really going to care. So is that really something that we, this is the head of sustainability of like a huge brand in the US. So like, and honestly, like I feel like fashion, like as much as we talk about sustainability until we're blue in the face, like you walk out of an event and no one really does anything. Like they do the
mm,
bare minimum, because I don't think they see, I think they see that consumers don't care. They don't want to put the time into making consumers care, because consumers need to be educated, even though I think it's the craziest thing that they can't figure out how to educate a consumer. Because I have many ideas, but I can't knock on people's door and be like, I have an
this
idea.
is a new business
Um,
model. This is a new business
they,
Jordana's going to get into.
but you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's kind of
I do. I do.
it's a very, and the thing is, like, and then you go to like Asia. So we just met recently, and this I can say because he was honest about it, and it's the truth.
Yeah.
We met with the senior VP of Alice and Olivia for Asia, and we're like, how about sustainability? He's like, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. No one really cares at all about sustainability in Asia. So it's not even something we talk about.
Hmm.
So if you have this massive region in the world that has the majority amount of people living there that don't care at all about sustainability and are doing no efforts toward it, we can do whatever we want to do in the US, even though I think we're a long way from it. Europe
Yes.
is doing okay. But if that other part of the world is doing nothing, what
Hmm.
does it do that we're doing something, right? So I think
Mm,
there's like a lot of issues that are not talked about. Yes, there are initiatives being taken. Yes, there are brands that are doing good things with it. Yes,
hmm.
there are brands that are leading the way with it, but it's not enough to create the change that we need to have made, So,
No, I completely agree with you on that, and I do think it comes down to I mean, no, it comes down to many different variables, and policy is obviously the first and foremost one that needs to change, and
yeah.
that's its own category of conversation. But you said earlier, like you're an optimist, okay, and you obviously you rub shoulders with some of the top tier talent in fashion, and obviously you get to get exposure to some of the most innovative startups out there, creating some really unique components to things that are addressing the climate crisis. what what are you hopeful for? I mean, what do you see as what do you see going well with the companies and the people that you engage with,
So
if
what
anything
I'm
at all? And you know
hopeful,
what, if it's not, if there's nothing else, you can say nothing too.
no,
I'm
I'm not hopeful at
That's the
all.
truest true statement.
No.
Yeah.
What I'm hopeful for, honestly, is like today I went to visit, as an example, I went to visit Owet, who started a brand, has a flagship now in Soho, was actually like really embraced by Kenneth Cole when he first came out during COVID. And he only started the brand so that supply chain workers didn't lose their job because everyone else wasn't,
uh,
paying.
mhm.
Super cool story, amazing brand. And he's doing really well. And I think because he came in with this attitude of wanting to help people through fashion. And
Mhm.
even his flagship store, he made it like a lifestyle place where you can literally buy the furniture you're sitting on. There's a matcha bar, there to close. He even put a space for BIPOC designers in his store, and they don't have to like pay him a percentage of things that sell, literally just for support. So that type of
what
thing is
what is it
where
called?
Awet, AWET.
A wet. Shout
It's
out a wet.
amazing.
I'll have to check it
You
out.
should check it out.
Yeah.
So like when I see something like that, I'm like, that's the future, because I feel like fashion is lifestyle. Lifestyle is experience. I feel like it's like the minute consumers start to understand, so sustainability is very easy to explain to consumer. It's just like treat people good, treat people well, treat the planet well. Like let's all live here for a very long time. And we don't necessarily like, I think, I don't know. It's a long conversation. I do have faith because of brands like his, and because even Kenneth Cole, who's been around for a long time, and he keeps like, putting himself back out there, but he does it through social causes, gun
Yeah.
control issues. Like,
Hmm.
I think if you use fashion for good and then you get consumers behind that, and we even just focus on sustainability just to do good through fashion, that's already a step for consumers to go, okay, let me see what this brand is doing. Nothing. I don't want to buy this brand. Then that brand can do more social good. And then through doing more social good, they see that there's results. And then through seeing that there's results and more sales, maybe they'll be like, let me take the next step and be more sustainable in doing A, B, C, D.
Hmm.
So I do see that. Like, I could see that happening. Like, Mara Hoffman is blowing up this year. She just got the CFDA Environmental Award. Like, she's doing really cool things. She just did the first dress made of 100% waste. And because she got the award, I'm sure now other designers are like, oh, she got an award and this is what she did. I can do that too. So I think these examples, which there are in the industry, I do believe that it can trickle and have an effect on the bigger brands to
Hmm.
want to start to do better through their success of the smaller brands that can be more nimble. So I do have faith for it, but I do believe that we as event planners and hosts of podcasts and all of us, I think we have a very big role. No, it's true, because I think if we start, like, if we finish this conversation and you go, you know what, Jordana, what you said about the consumers, I'm gonna hold you accountable. I'm gonna interview you again in 1 year, and
Sure.
I want to see what you've told brands to do that's gonna help educate consumers. If
Uh-huh.
we start like holding people accountable, that we give them a platform to speak on, to give them like a project and say, in a year, I want to see what you've done with this. I think you can do it. That would be kind of cool. But we
Mm,
don't do that, right? We just give a platform and then we say, oh, that was nice. Thank you for talking. And then they leave and they don't do anything. You know what I mean? So I
sure.
think I don't know. My mind is like, you're actually giving me ideas.
Hey, feel free to take them. You can use them for commercial capacities as well. I'm verbally signing off on that.
Right? But does it make sense what
I
I'm
do know
saying?
it does make sense. It does make sense, and I think that there is something to be said. And I mean, this isn't to shoot myself in the foot at all, because I think that there is value in just general information and offering a platform.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that when it comes to addressing environmental or social problems, particularly, I think because they are, on one hand, they're complex. They're complex problems. They're complex,
Yeah.
intertwined with a lot of different incentives and a lot of different variables on all intertwined. They're hard because they're hard challenges. I think a lot of people who do care about those problems aren't willing to do the actual work required to make to make those changes. And at the end of, I think so. So one way that one could want to help is by doing something that, sharing a post or
Yeah.
creating a podcast or writing an article. And those things are not nothing by any means. I mean, I'm doing that, right? But they're not that isn't the actual action of doing the heavy
Yeah.
lifting. I sort of taking that one step further. It's like consultants. And I was a sustainability consultant myself. I'm not hating on the work, but it's, you're telling people what to do instead of doing it yourself. And
Yeah.
to solve the problem, we need to do it. So,
It's true.
it's talking the talk and not walking the walk. There's a
Yeah.
disconnect sometimes. And again, this isn't to negate anyone's work or any of that nature. I mean,
No, not at all.
that's literally, I just listed the things that I do. So,
Yeah.
but it's like, I think that there is something to be said about um, um, more accountability and more action rather than talking, because
Yeah.
the time for a lot of these issues, specifically when it comes to the environmental component of this, time is ticking, and we
Oh
will
yeah.
not have a world where you can make that cheap cotton garment and your consumers are willing to pay for it, because I am curious about something on your end, because you talk about educating the consumers and you talk about providing information and creating this platform for people to speak on. I'm curious to know how you, as an individual, as a head of a household with children, with young children, and you said you're not into fashion, but I know I know you to be a fashionable woman, and I'd love to know how working in this space has impacted you on an individual level and as a family unit, how you consume, how you shop
Yeah.
for clothes, but how you consume product in general.
Yeah. So it's actually funny. So believe it or not, in the last year, I maybe went shopping 2 times for myself. And that's like to get like some basic pieces that I needed. I say that because I've always had, so I have three sisters who are all like, they look like me. They're my height, they're my size, everything. And I have my mom who's also very similar. So, and then, so what we
Yeah.
always have done our whole lives, like whenever someone gets tired of their clothes, they put it in a bag, they send it to my house. I look through it, I send it to my sister. So we've been like swapping clothes and it goes, and then it's funny because I'll give something and then a year later, my sister will be like, I don't want this. And I'll be like, I gave you that a year ago, but I want it back now. So we literally just
Cool.
go
Yeah.
like, yeah. So I feel
Yeah.
like we do a lot of that. I actually like, I'm looking at my suitcase here on the floor. A lot of the pieces that I brought, one is my aunt's. Like I always get a word joke for my youngest sister because she has really good taste. So
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't shop much, truthfully. And
Hmm.
also I'm a very, um, like I live in Florida, so on a day to day, I'm in my Havaianas with like shorts and a tank top, and it's the
Sure.
same outfit every day. And I have outfits that I bought 10 years ago that I still have in my closet that I still wear to this
I love
day.
it. I love it.
So I'm not a consumer. Now my daughters are consumers, big
Yeah.
consumers. They're
Yeah.
5 and 7, but they love to shop. So I try to teach them like why they shouldn't shop. So like now, not only are they very conscious of what they have and what they shop, but now they also clean out their closets and they say, I want to give it to a little kid that doesn't have, or
Nice.
like they do these types of things. So I'm starting to teach them. But yeah, I've never been a big consumer, honestly. It's funny.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. I think reuse obviously is a big component that we can do as individuals.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a lot of interesting platforms out there that are enabling that on a larger scale. What's your is there a okay, so reuse is an example, is a perfect example though
Yeah.
of like a sustainable business model or more of a circular business model within fashion. Then you obviously have resale and the like, rental as well, and other sorts of manufacturing circular components more deeper into the supply chain. What area of sustainable fashion, and again, sustainable fashion in a very broad, big umbrella term, excites you the most in terms of its impact and its business potential?
I think it's I want to say the rental. I like
Interesting. Why?
because I feel like, I mean, I don't know. I know most girls that I know, like, we don't like to repeat outfits. This is the problem. This is why I feel like people shop a lot. And especially like
Definitely.
now, I feel, but I feel like now, I'm speaking at a lot of events. It feels like a lot lately.
Yeah.
And when I'm getting photos and stuff, it feels weird to wear something that I wore at an event already to another event. It shouldn't, but it does. So
Hmm.
I feel like the rental thing is good because, like, actually, there's a brand for the first time that reached out to me in Florida. They have a store that I really, really like, but I just like talked to the owner and whatever. And then I was like, let me borrow pieces. And then he's like, just take them then, choose four, and then return them to me when you're done wearing them. And then we could just, and then you just post the tag us or whatever. But then when I return it to them, they actually can use it for other, so they don't give it to you. They just let you borrow it. So
Hmm.
I think the rental thing I think is really interesting because, and then I think it could, like there's the Global Fashion Exchange with Patrick Duffy, what he
Yeah.
does,
Yeah.
which I think is super
That's a
cool.
cool
So I
platform.
think it also builds community. I think like you could
Mm.
do rental with you and your friends. You could do it through like I don't know. I think it's cool, and I also think fashion is the one thing that really connects people.
Hmm.
Like I can literally, like tonight, if I go out to dinner and I see someone and I want to start a conversation, all I have to do is say, "Oh, I like your shoes,"
Yeah.
and that can turn into a whole hour conversation and
You can
friendship.
make a best friend that way.
You can
Yeah,
make it
you can
exactly.
find your future wife or husband that way. It's a
Yeah.
powerful
I
tool.
mean, yeah. I don't think my husband would want me to find a future one again, but
I'm not saying,
I'm
Jordan. That
kidding.
was not what I was. That's not what I was insinuating. Come on now. Put a pin in this. That part's getting edited out. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. That's cool, man. That's cool. This is a bit of a curveball question, but I think a lot about these circular business models, particularly those that touch the consumer, right? Specifically in fashion, reuse, resale, and whatnot. And resale, not resale, sorry, rental specifically is, I feel like this is a hypothesis. I don't know the numbers behind this, so I'm gonna have to fact check myself. But it seems like a very female dominant space. Whereas, and I think a lot of fashion sort of
Yeah.
skews like more of a female consumer than a male consumer, even though male clothing has grown at a much faster rate in the last couple of years. How would you educate a male consumer to be okay with rental?
That's a good question.
Like how do you crack the code of the male consumer to get into these new models? But I mean, I'm particularly talking about rental, whereas before I don't think that the average dude is about that.
That's a good question. I think I didn't even think about, so funny when you asked that question, I automatically went to women in my head. Because I don't know, because I'm thinking, I feel like, I don't think men have, I mean, maybe some, but I think it's a much higher percentage of women that have a problem with like over consuming. I feel like men, they're very logical in what they need, and then they get with it's like I mean, I feel like my husband, for example, he shops once a year, and that's only if he like loses a lot of weight or whatever. Otherwise, he has the same clothes from when I met him 7 years ago, still in the closet. And even when I tell him like, "Oh, you should go buy," he's like, "I already have a blue shirt, or I already have a white shirt." And I feel like a lot of men are like that. So I don't know. I feel like for the more fashionable, I guess, that like to change whatever, I think it would just be how you like shifting the narrative around rental, because I feel like maybe men would have a little bit of more like, I don't want to like wear some other dudes, whatever. I don't know. I don't know how guys think really, but this is I'm playing it in my head, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's just a question.
Though.
It is a good question. It is a good question. And I definitely for sure am not the right person to address this to, because I am, the way that I consume is a bit more particular. And I mean, I look at fiber count, and I look at the types of percentage of synthetics in my clothes, but anyway, but that's me, and that's not the average Joe. And I think that's who I want to crack. Like, how can we in general sort of crack the minds of the average consumer that isn't thinking about this, that still thinks in very traditional ways, both socially and environmental?
Yeah, I'm imagining like a farmer in Minnesota. How like how do you?
He's like, "Oh, I need to get like a new red shirt for Friday's tractor pull or something like that." I don't know. Shout out my farmers in Minnesota. My mom's from Minnesota. Just put that out there. I love the state of Minnesota. I love all my farmers out there. Anyway, Jordana, just to sort of swing this back to fashion innovation and whatnot, I love to understand from you, where do you see fashion innovation going in the next 5 to 10 years? And what does success look like for you, Jordana, as the person, both professionally, and that doesn't have to be about fashion innovation, but just professionally overall, and on a personal level?
Very good question. Yep, you're a good interviewer. So so let me think. So future Fashinnovation, going based off of like our business plan and our roadmap that we put together, is really to create some type. So right now we're not a scalable business. We don't have a scalable business model. Everything we do is like for project, for sponsorship, and it's a hustle to keep it going. And that's like difficult to grow a business that way. So right now we actually like, little information that no one else knows, but I could share it very briefly. Sure. But we just developed an app that just got approved by Apple. So our goal is to create like a membership of some sort, that we can really be more connected to each member of our community and what they need, and be able to create bespoke experiences for those individuals with our contacts in the industry globally. So that's what we have as a roadmap, and I think that could be really great and scalable. So that's what we're thinking about, and then maybe even eventually doing like a membership where like once a year there's one big event that only members are invited to, where we invite like the biggest speakers in the world, like something almost like DFII Institute or like those types of events. So that's kind of like the goal. Um, in terms of like me professionally, it's funny because so in Fashinnovation, Marcelo is the business developer and I'm the relationship community builder. And I feel like I have this like bigger desire to, because I feel like I have a thing, a knack for like people opening up to me, and even like really big names opening up to me about personal things that like a lot of people don't really get to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to find a way to, with Fashinnovation, but also outside of Fashinnovation, to really be able to inspire the world through the voices of people in fashion in some type of way. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. Funny enough, I even bought a book at the airport that like stood out to me and I felt like it was a sign, but it was like the power of like influence and how to like lead with people around you and bring them into your circle. And I'll read it and I'll let you know how it is
Yeah,
because
please do.
I would
That
love
sounds
to.
right up my alley.
But that's like that's what I always like. That's what I have a dream of doing, and then
Mm-hmm.
doing more with like the social causes and all of that. On a personal Jordana side, I
Yeah.
feel like, I feel like I've lived my life. This is kind of interesting, but I've lived my life always trying to like accomplish the next big thing and always like trying to build businesses and building businesses and having kids and like I don't know, I feel like I've always been just like busy, but like too busy sometimes that I never really took time for like what would I do if I wasn't working or my kids weren't around? Like, what do I do with myself? I never really took time to figure out like what hobbies do I have a hobby that I would like to do. So I think this 2024 coming up, and I've already started thinking about it. So I'm not one of those people that I'm like, I'm going to wait for a New Year's resolution. Like this, like, I could start
Nice.
now.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to like take guitar lessons, possibly surfing lessons. Those are the two things I've
I
always
love
wanted to
it.
do.
Yeah.
So I want to focus more on the Jordana, the person,
Yeah.
outside of everything else that kind of like is what we do as like entrepreneurs and parents
Mm-hmm.
and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my
Mm-hmm.
goal.
I love that. I love that. I just started surfing this year too, and it's in
Did
such
you?
a yeah, such an amazing. I mean, not that I do that often, but it's whenever I can, I do, and it's just such an amazing, full body immersive experience, and it's
I'm
so much harder
excited.
than it looks. Yeah, it'll be really really cool for
I'm
you.
sure.
Yeah, to that point, Jordan, I mean, there's a couple of things that I would love to just harper on there. How do you recharge as an entrepreneur, and that in between being a mother and running a business with your partner, how do you regenerate, replenish those energies so that you can go full force moving on forward?
So funny. It's a good question. So there's like a funny side to it, but it's like also something that I enjoy. And
Yeah.
actually, I even had a show during COVID with it, with the wine and fashion wine talks with
Yeah.
Jordana. But I feel like, and
I
it's
remember
not
those.
wine to get drunk, but it's just like wine to like relax. Like it's a
Yeah.
thing that I really enjoy drinking when I'm having a stressful day. But to really recharge, like as an example, I came to New York for a trade show. I spoke
Hmm.
there this morning. I could have stayed all day if I wanted to, but I decided there are times where like I know I need a break from like everything. So instead of being there, and I could maybe have gotten new business being there or somebody that I didn't know, but I was like, I'm more important. So I left and I went to a Japanese restaurant. I sat down by myself. I had my glass of wine. I ate super slow. I walked back to my hotel room. I laid down at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, I don't want to do anything else. So I literally sometimes just shut
Yeah.
off when no one else is expecting me to shut off. And I don't necessarily tell people about it. Not even my own husband who will hear this and he'll know. But like I don't need to because I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes we just need that time to ourselves.
Yes.
And it's super important for me.
Hmm.
Like that's what recharges me.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that one thing that I see being more talked about in this sort of entrepreneurship, personal development zeitgeist is the important, which I'm happy to see because it wasn't the case beforehand, but just the idea of rest and recovery
Yeah.
and the importance of that. Because If you aren't recharging yourself, then how can you can't be going at 100% all the time. We all have limited
No.
amounts of energy in the day, no matter who we are. And so,
Yeah.
well, I hope you can have as many of those as you need. But with that, Jordana, I'm
Thank you.
curious, is there anything that you'd love to leave the audience with? Any sort of messages or advice you have to would-be entrepreneurs who want to merge their passions and their careers, who want to merge their careers with social good? I'd love to hear your take.
I say honestly, like, I mean, anybody who listens to this can see that I'm way transparent, sometimes too transparent for my own good. But I feel like that's what's led me to the success that I'm having now with
Mm,
Fashinnovation, because I don't think it's common to have someone be so open about everything and kind of like, this is who I am, like,
hmm.
and I can't be anybody else other than that. And I think honestly, that's why people have gotten so close to me, like some of the biggest names in the industry that I can send a text message to and they want to help me and they want to see me grow,
Yeah.
because I think I am so transparent. And to this day, when I talk to people, sometimes I can see that they're kind of shocked by, like today I had a panel with Dana Davis from Mara Hoffman, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for speaking with me today. And I genuinely, like, I felt honored to be next to her. And she was like smiling, like, wow, like she's still like excited to speak with me, like type of thing. But I
Yeah.
was like, and it's something, I think if you just don't lose the excitement of what you're doing, like keep that passion with you and don't let it, what the day that it becomes something where you wake up and you're like, I don't really care. Like, I'm just going to do this. I think like everything just starts to go downhill. So
Mm,
it's like keeping the excitement, keeping the passion. And if it's not there one day anymore, maybe it's time to do something else. And also just genuinely be 100%. This is something one a founder of a chocolate company always says, and I love it, but be unapologetically you. I
mm,
think it's like super important, because not everyone's going to love you and they're not
hmm.
supposed to. You're not meant to be everyone's cup of tea, but when you do find your community and your tribe and they support you because you are who you are, magic happens. So that's what I would say.
Touche. That's beautiful. Jordana, I just want to again thank you so much for your time today, but more importantly, I want to
Yeah.
acknowledge you for that transparency, and I think that that is an amazing characteristic that you have, and I think we have. I'll speak only about at least Western American society, whatnot, but we sort of have taught people in a way to not be their honest self, right? So
Yeah.
we tell them to sort of play lighter, play lower, like dim your light a little bit to be normal and accepted. And I don't say this and that because people are going to perceive you in a way, and I just see
Yeah.
that as a wasted potential in a lot of people. And I
Yeah.
acknowledge you for not giving into that and being that true self, true version of yourself, unapologetically, and that you've created something really special for the audience members. Context of this, I met Jordana, I think I believe in 2019, actually, at one of the early
Yeah.
Fashinnovation events, and we were able to connect. And I was working at a fashion tech company at the time, and it was just so cool. I got to go to one of her events, and I got to go to the next, and it's just, I mean, talk about an entrepreneurial journey where I have seen the growth every
Thank
quarter
you.
effectively at each event gets bigger and better and bigger and better. And it's just, it was really, it's always, for me, it's always a distinct memory I have being in New York and being in sort of that fashion space. And super
Thank you.
cool. And I can't wait to be the next one. I mean, I've just met so many amazing people there. She's really been able to bring a lot of amazing minds together that bring the industry forward, merge the ideas of sustainability and social progress and fashion all into one. So Jordana, keep on doing
And
you. And
thank you. And I have to tell you one more thing. Like, me being this transparent
mhm,
is all, it's me, but it's also you and your way. Like, you're very easy to talk to. You have
thanks.
first, you're really like incredible, like
Thank you.
questions. Like, you really, yeah, you ask things in the right moment, but also you're just a very like warm person. And even like, meeting you at my events, I'm sure I've gone up to you at events and be like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Is this good? I don't know. Cause like you have this thing about you where you automatically feel like I honestly feel like I've known you for like
True.
decades, even though,
Indeed. Yeah.
so it's like that you have that about you. So it's a really special gift too, because it
Thank you.
allows people to want to be vulnerable and use that opportunity to do it. So congrats to you as
That means
well.
a lot, Jordana. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that means a lot. I'm super happy we were able to do this, and
Me
again, going back to your thing earlier, next year we'll do this again and see
Yeah.
where things go from there.
Perfect. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.